Hello and welcome. You've clicked this video because you are at least interested in improving your edge highlighting or trying it. I think it's something that people worry about a lot. I've got some very good news for you. We're going to make it as easy as possible in this tutorial. I'm going to give you some rules to follow so you don't have to do it on every edge, like literal suggestions of where to highlight a Space Marine, and you can take those examples and you can apply them to any miniature. They're very simple and it'll allow you to concentrate a little bit harder for quite a lot less time, which is really helpful when you're learning a new technique. If you're worried about control, shaky hands or anything, don't worry, we've got some really useful, helpful stuff for that in mind as well. I'll be using an egg, which really helps with control and bracing. Any of you who've got, like RSI related injuries or sports injuries or just, age injuries, however you want to put it, anything like that to do with hands, something like this will really help. Very often you probably want the widest thing possible. This is a medium egg. I'm using it upside down, so it's fat side up, and this is my preference. I don't have massive hands. I've got like average man hands, but we do have the bigger one. If you just find, if you've got injuries that make holding a wider one useful, that's a great idea. And of course, you can use something from around the house as well, but these are absolutely wonderful. And they're also very convenient for swapping miniatures over. I've actually I magnetize mine. We sell the discs as well. They're very cheap. Oh, all right. Pin minis, guys. Anyway, back to our Space Marine. Okay, so I guess something to cover at the beginning is that you don't have to edge highlight anything, but these rules, even if you're not thinking of edge highlighting, you're just going to highlight normally with layering or something like that. I'm still going to give you some very good locations for you to put those and some reasons for how to do them or why to do them and some tips on how to do them. And they will apply if you're doing weathering as well. It doesn't have to be for the like factory fresh, super shiny Marines. This has just been contrasted, and this is a fantastic way to follow up contrasting, whether that's in your evolution as a painter or just to make your commander look good. Maybe you've got a certain someone, a famous Space Marine, and you want to make him look sharper, literally. But it's also, as we can see on this guy's neck, it's a good way to hide mistakes. Okay, so first and foremost, I want to remind you, and people just don't realize this until you figured it out too late, edge highlighting is a fantastic way to hide mistakes and to pull attention away from things that didn't go perfectly. It can save you time. I genuinely mean that. I'm not just trying to sell the technique. I know there's some intimidation around it, but edge highlighting somewhere pulls your eyes towards the edges, and then little mistakes like this where my contrast hasn't gone so well, my eyes just aren't going to focus on if there's a sharp edge below it, because they'll look at the edges. We're made to recognize patterns and sharp things in edges, just like I've done some chipped edging around here. And your edges don't have to be done all smooth and shiny. This one suggests wear and tear on the back of the gum. That's a stuttering edge highlight. So you just do exactly what I'm going to be showing you how to do, but you go up and down rather than all the way along. Very simple. You can do as much or as little as you want, and I would thoroughly recommend you take a minimal approach at first. I'm going to show you on this Space Marine where I would put the highlights and where I would suggest, and I'm going to do them. So that'll help you, especially if you're painting a Space Marine, but those rules you can apply to any model. It looks good as well. Minis are small. One of the reasons that edge highlighting is so common in Games Workshop do it in particular is it's really hard to make out what's going on when something is 3 and a bit centimeters high. All right, so dark lines between different areas like we've got here. Check out our tutorial for this guy, how it was done beforehand, if you want to see how that was done. It was just contrasted with some clever pink trickery. That's going to help me realize that there is a trim there, okay? This is the main bit, that is the trim, they're separated by this. If that line wasn't dark, they just kind of blend into each other, and the smaller something is, the more helpful it is. This elbow pad looks amazing, that's because I just highlighted the edge softly, and that lets you know that it's, that's the bit that sticks out. So it's just making it easier to read it, like a cartoon, where you paint around the edges. Okay then, areas to highlight and how much your model should you highlight. If you're a beginner, I would thoroughly recommend that you highlight about a third of the edges you've got available or less. So that's brilliant news. You don't need to do 100% of them at all. Ones you don't need to bother about, like any under his bum, between his legs, basically areas that are hard to see. If you are going to try and take a practical approach to this, I imagine my guy's being lit from up here, like literally the camera is looking at him from the correct angle. The money shot bits are top of the backpack, that's one of the hardest areas, especially these ones. So if these highlights go wrong for you, it's not just you, they're softer. It's much easier to highlight a sharp 90-degree edge than it is like whatever that angle is. Can't think on the fly there. So you can miss these out if you want. They're very, very likely to not go as well as the rest of them. I just highlight the square on top sometimes and maybe do a little dark wash line in here to kind of simulate it. So it's not you if these go wrong. They're the hardest ones on a Space Marine, I would say. Head, the intake, even though they face downwards just around the eyes because you want to draw attention to the eyes, anything that is rounded is a blessing because you can just do the top bit of it. So his ear bit here, can do the top of that. If it was a shoulder, you don't have to do either edge of the top of the trim of his shoulder pad. You can just hit the top. It'd be like there at the top anyway. It'd be like this. So, you know, it's a round thing. Light is going to be reflecting off the very top of it. Whatever we do with it, you could just put a fat highlight across all of that, and then down here it could be edges. Hands look pretty cool. Around the chest, often there's not much that you think you can do. So you can just put a little dark wash in or something like that, but I would highlight the top of the skull in whatever color is going to be relevant. Top of his nose, knees and toes. Head, shoulders, knees and toes, literally. All right, plus arms. So the top of these, maybe here, that's a little bit of a brave one because it's not an edge. And then on the front of the toes, if you're weathering a lot, you can skip anything, you know, like below this, I would say. If you're using pigments or something like that, check out a pigments video. Okay, that is pretty much everything. I realize that I've spoken for a fair bit there, but hopefully that has given you a good idea of how much you don't need to worry about what we're about to do. There's going to be, I've given you all the information now on why, where, how, what styles. I'm going to show you practically how to set up your brush, including what size. So we've done the where and how much. That's much more complicated than the brush. I think you should be using, for a Space Marine, and generally for edge highlighting, a 1, a 2, or a 3. This is a 2, it's ours, so it's incredibly pointy. Ours are incredibly straight always, they don't age badly. Even if I pick up an ancient one that's touched super glue in its life, because I was an idiot, it's still perfectly straight, even if I've literally torn off the end of it, okay? Good brushes last longer. I'll put a link down to our brushes below. They're outstanding. If you're on the fence about trying a good brush, just pick up a 2. Give it a go. You won't regret one of these. You do not want to use one that's too small or too big when you're beginning. Too small, it will dry out instantly. And I live in the UK where it's humid and fairly temperate, it's not too hot. Anywhere super cold and dry or super hot and dry, which is most places are more of those than England is, we live in blending territory, you do not want to use a tiny brush. There is a time and a place that something like this is going to dry out far quicker than something like this. There is no way around that, so I suggest you do not use a small brush. We're going to be painting the edges, and how sharp the edges is going to dictate, or is going to dictate whether we highlight them or not how small our brush is. You don't want a huge one because it encourages flooding, but a 2 is pretty perfect in my opinion. Right, I'm going to show you quickly how to make a color and just match one to Marine. So I don't have a prepared color here, but I'm going to show you how I'd work out how to pick a color for my edge highlighting. Just to note, Manchester, sirens. There we go. Still going. Some coffee. Don't tell anyone I'm having tiramisu for breakfast. I'm a grown-up, honest. Tuesday morning in Manchester. Goodness. All right, so note on the color you highlight. I would recommend at the beginning, you don't choose one that's too much lighter than your model. That is because if you make a mistake, it'll be less noticeable. As easy as that. So, how to match a color. Now this looks like it might be about the right color to highlight him with. He was painted with Imperial Fist and Bad Moon as a mix. Again, check out other tutorials if you want to do that. Now, One of the simplest things you can do is pick a lighter color. The Citadel, what used to be the edge paints, so paints like Dawn or Pink Horror, or sorry, Fulgrim Pink, the Lilac, they're all great, but they might be a little bit too light. So one of the things you can do if you paint with a contrast is just pick other paints that are the similar color to the contrast and dump a bit of those in. You can dump a little bit of the contrast in. I wouldn't put too much in though, because contrast doesn't behave right for this type of thing. Just like adding a white ink in can make your paint really bad to work with, you want to be using paints if possible. So dilution and amount. A lot of people are going to get this wrong. You do not want too much on your brush, and you really don't want it too dilute. So it becomes more important for you to pick the right color. If you're using very strong paints, it can be quite scary. The closer you'll match to the main color, the contrast color, the less things are going to show up. Now that can be forgiving. Obviously you don't want to paint like literally nothing on, but let me show you how to set up your brush. You can see I've already touched it on the back of my hand. Some people twist when they do it. I'm removing paint now, but I'm also assessing, you know, how easily it comes off and how easy it is for me to make a fine line. I'm not going to be painting like this. We're going to be cheating. We're going to be highlighting our edges, if this is the fluffy bit of the brush, like that. Now, if I tip it at this angle, more will go on this side. And if I tip it at that angle, more will go on that side. Generally speaking, your brush wants to be at exactly 45 degrees. You don't want to be like laying across one edge. It looks bad. Okay. So we've mixed a color. I'll test it somewhere where I know I want it to be light anyway. Right. Full grip here. Bracing really steadily. You can't see, but down here, each of my wrists is like leaning properly into the table, and I'm hunched a little bit. You know the pose. Okay, but these, there's no floating here. If I can, they'll be literally clasped together, or, you know, like you're shooting a gun. All right, you want multiple points of bracing, and then take some practice swings until you hit it. It's like you're trying to miss it until you don't. And then we've put a little bit of an edge highlight there. That's too bright. Next one. Now don't fall into the trap of doing it in the same spot, right? This bit's kind of more in shadow, his shoulders are at different angles, so actually the bit facing upwards of this shoulder is here. That's better. Okay, that's it. I'm just going to go around the marine doing exactly that. You can do it just at the tops. Remember, like here, this is the light bit. That's the top. All right. This doesn't change too much. If we have a more complex shape, sphere, it still is going to have an area that is lighter and the sides aren't. So anything that's a ball, if in doubt, what's facing up? We spoke before about this part of his shoulder pads. I'm just going to hit all of it. It's actually a little bit fiddly to only hit the edges in that position as well. So I'm just going to hit the lot. I'll try and hit the edge here. Again, I'm bracing. My pinky's never leaving. I'm not hovering around, and my wrist is braced on the desk. Keeping that 45-degree angle, whatever we do. This doesn't have an upwards facing area unless we're going to highlight a flat bit, but we're just sticking to edges. So hit the side of the shoulder pad. Notice that I'm still using my same brush. It's beginning to dry out a little, but it's not too bad. What's facing upwards? Hit these bits. Obviously, I should have prepared my model better. Let's pretend that I didn't just rag a snap fit off and push it together. Let me show you the hard section. I'll prepare my brush again, then we'll zoom in. I'll show you the hard section, and probably, not on purpose I may add, I'm going to make a mistake. And I just want you to know that everyone does it, and it's hard. It's not just you. Okay. So, we test. Looks about right, feel in control. And then I try and get that 45-degree angle. Obviously that's really hard. Hold breath. Okay, we actually did an all right job there. That's not too bad. Let's try the other one. Brace. My egg is braced on my desk. So there's like 20 points of contact. Me, my egg, my hands, my wrists. And then I'm bracing super steadily so I can make the smallest movement possible. And my paint doesn't want to leave my brush too much, so it's gone worse, but it's okay. I'm not going to try and fix that. That is good enough. Let's go to a nice sharper edge, upwards facing bit of it. There we go. Head, easy in comparison. Now, something that no one ever talks about. Tip of my brush is dry, the middle isn't. Okay, so I can move to the middle of my brush, even though the tip's dried out. And I can use that to highlight. So again, less screwing around, less going back to the palette. It's about being efficient. And it's looking pretty good. Small areas, you can still use the side of your big brush. You don't need to go and get a tiny brush, just use angle, everything that we've been speaking about. Horrible bits, backpacks are bad, all right? So stuff like this line here, I'm gonna need to go reset my brush, so just make it a little bit wet. And then probably there's a chance of a slip here. So I've actually flattened my brush, pressed it flat, turn it all the way over, press it flat again. I've made like a spatula out of it. And now I'm just gonna stroke that sideways, try and miss it until I hit it. There we go. Okay, not as hard as you think. If you're wondering what on earth to do with these, probably they'd be highlighted like that. Again, it's a cylinder. There's one point here. You could do the edges as well at the bottom. That's it. That is everything you need to know. I would suggest, zoom out a second. I would suggest just using one color that's quite close to your mini at first when you do this. I've gone over, I just need to do a little bit on his arm. Let's fix the mistake that I made on him, because this is one of the benefits of it. Right, pulling attention to a nice sharp highlight is going to hide the fact that actually I got Nuln Oil on his collar. And maybe this isn't the area that would be the brightest, you know, in terms of like being super technically correct, but it's just convenient that I can hide a mistake in a way that's not going back and repainting the entire thing. So this is going to be a bit lighter. Keep those angles. I'll just fill it in. Cool, we got away with that. A couple of those, and we'd cover it over pretty easily. Get in close, get a good look at it, make sure you're working under good light. Something that can easily go wrong is that this edge here on the bottom of the shoulder pad, I could accidentally paint across the flap. Practice, 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 steady, get in there, and then just like kiss the edge just about. Less is more. You can perfect it in time. I would aim to spend a small amount of concentration time doing the edges on each of your minis, like 10 to 20 minutes max. Do them one at a time and just really concentrate for it. If you feel yourself starting to make mistakes, just stop, do another task, because it's frustrating to make it, you know, a great big slip and put a line across the middle of this pad or something like that. Really easily done. Other things to avoid: do not have too much paint on your brush, do not have it too wet, don't use a tiny brush. A 2 is perfect. Like I said, I'll link these below. Our size 2 is outstanding. Size 3 is really good, size 1 is really good. Don't go any bigger or smaller than that. And don't use a curly brush or one that's pointing in multiple directions. It's just not a good idea. You need a straight, pointy brush that you feel in control of. It doesn't have to be new, but it's got to be good quality. I realized that I forgot to show a couple of key areas. So for highlighting, even though they're on the rear, and I said that's not as important as what's at the top on the front, kind of like the toes are important. I would highlight the top of this, the top of here, and if you want, optional is highlighting these, but sometimes it's better to just panel line them a little bit. You can do these quite easily as well. These tend to look nice if you do, but they would be in shadow, so you can miss them if you want. Same with this. That's it. And if you have a look around online, there's some very easy ways to avoid having to work on these bits. You can just paint these silver. But again, if you are highlighting anywhere, just top edges. Nice and easy. Right. I'm going to highlight the areas that I said would need doing on this guy. And I'm going to put a little bit of a wash at the bottom of the transfers, just to make them look older. This one's split, but it looks like battle damage, so that's okay. Anywhere where the transfers didn't go well, got some wrinkles on there, I'm just going to hide with chipping, and I'll chip it with the same highlight colour that I used for the edges. This is tabletop ready. It looks great, super easy, and I've just dumped contrast in where the eyes were, and I dumped contrast on the same colours as the base. For this, I need to get the rest of it. It's meant to be red. I just checked it out. Transfers, particularly if they are lighter colours, definitely weather the bottom of them a little bit, and you can give them a matte varnish to make them match the rest of your model as well if you want. This is tabletop ready though. Pigments on his base, check out a video here, and he'd be absolutely good to go. Also, if you want to have a look at edge highlighting but using dry brushing, so really good if you're very worried about steady hands, there's a fantastic video somewhere on the screen now. Let's sort him out and he'll be done. For the efficient amongst you, if you don't have matte varnish or you don't want to use it, it's a little bit more damaging on brushes, you can absolutely just use contrast medium. Try and paint it all over where the transfer is. Remember that the transfer has borders that are bigger than the actual coloured bit of it normally. So I paint slightly wider than the transfer itself. Watch this, it's magic transformation. From shiny to matte, and that now of course perfectly matches everywhere around. Because it's less shiny, it's easy to do your chipping after this, but it's harder to wipe it off. So you can paint on the transfer doing some chips, and then if you make a mistake, just lick a finger and rub it off beforehand. If you've done this, it really wants to stay on there because it's a matte and absorbent surface, so you take your pick. But how good is that? He is so good to go. I love yellow. I love this technique. Right, suggestions for what you'd like to see next in a simple video. I'm thinking maybe panel lining or something like that. I want things that are a great contrast to a complement to a simply contrasted model. Give me your suggestions down below and we'll run with them. Again, size 2, the only brush that I've used in this video. Outstanding.